I'm going to tell you all the truth. I met this young lady a couple of months ago, and I said, I simply have to talk to you for longer than the 3 minutes that we have right now.
Yeah.
This is Tiera Kennedy. And again, you may not know her story, but I'm telling you, this is one of those kind of, I almost feel like this is one of those gets. And when I say a get, I mean this. A couple of years ago, when I say, I have Tiera Kennedy on my podcast, people are going to go, shut up. No, you didn't. There's no way she came on your podcast because I think you have what it takes to get that big.
Thank you. I sure hope that's what happens.
Well, you've got everything. And first of all, I know you guys know I'm from Alabama. And here's the truth here. My mother-in-law has no idea what to get me for birthdays and Christmas. And she knows I'm an Alabama fan. So I get this all the time.
Oh, you get all the gear.
Get all the gear. And I was putting this, and my wife last night, she's like, you've got to wear your stuff for Tiera. She's from Alabama. And I'm like, duh.
Yes. I love it. You know, it's so funny. I feel like it's a cliche thing. Like whenever you're in Alabama to ask people like roll tide, where you go, whatever. So I love to do it at shows because it really just gets people going.
Well, listen, I first came up upon you on not, I found it in you. It was Alabama Nights.
Yeah.
That's where I first heard it because my friends know I'm from Alabama. And my buddy said, have you heard this girl in this song? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks. That is one of my most favorite songs to play at shows. And it's funny, I wrote it at a writer's retreat. And writer's retreats are my favorite way to write because you just kind of get to, chill with your friends, drink some alcohol, and just like have fun and write songs. And that was the last day of the retreat. We wrote that song. We did it we stopped writing the song at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. And it's just fun. It's about all of the things I love about growing up in Alabama. But it's cool playing that show out because even if you're not from Alabama, you can relate to that song, I feel like so many people have those small towns things that we've mentioned in it.
Well, everybody, because it's universal, literally my best friend in the world, his ringtone is Sweet Home Alabama. He is from San Jose, California, and he's never been there his entire life, right?
That's amazing.
I said, I may be the only person you've ever met from Alabama.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I have ended up being best friends is just really stupid. But it is that universal thing. It's that universal sound. And that's what it's Alabama Nights means something different to you and me, but it's the sound of the song and it's the fun. Yeah. And it's the joy. And that's the thing I've loved about your music. I know you describe it as country R&B, which I think is beautiful, but your music has such a joy in it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you because I wanted to find out how you got here. Now, I grew up in what we call LA for Lower Alabama, right? I grew up right on the Florida-Alabama line. I've told this story before. I grew up, our house was literally on the line. I went to high school in Alabama. My brother went to high school in Florida. We lived in the same house.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so when you go down to Destin, when you go down to Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola, you usually, especially coming from Huntsville, you're going right through my hometown. Right?
Oh, nice.
And there's a big fireworks stand there called Betty's Fireworks, the best bang in town. And it's famous because Luke Bryan stops there almost every year and fills the bus up with fireworks.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's when you're driving through, make sure you pull in and they'll take a picture of you and put it up on the wall.
Yeah. I got to. If it's cool enough for Luke Bryan.
Well, yeah. And then what's funny is they text or call me, my friends who still live there, and go, "Hey, who's here?" So
that's so awesome.
Just say Gary sent me, and it'll get you fireworks at the regular price. So,
okay, got it.
So I do want to find out about your journey. Tell me about you. I love the fact on Alabama Nights you did a little Instagram video with your parents, and I start to see
Yes.
where your joy comes from.
Oh my goodness. They are the best. My parents have been so supportive of me from the very beginning. From the moment I told them this is what I wanted to do, they were all in. And I remember when I decided that I wanted to get serious about music, and when I found out that you could do this as a job, I went home and I told them, and they put me in voice lessons, they put me in guitar lessons, and like really helped me find places to play around Alabama, and drove me around wherever I needed to go. And they were kind of like momager, dadager, vibes. Like that was totally their role, and they loved it. And so I was trying, like, I would perform around my hometown, and when I figured out that country was what I wanted to do, my parents started taking me up to Nashville, and we would go up there on the weekends. And when it was time for me to go to college, I was like, okay, I would like to go to college in Nashville so that I can, continue doing country music and doing the whole thing. But it ended up being very expensive, and I got a full ride to the University of North Alabama. So I went to school on the weekdays.
Hold on. Don't gloss over that. You got a full ride to UNA?
Yeah. So my dad's in the military, so I got like a military scholarship.
Nice.
Yeah. And the reason I chose to go to North Alabama actually was because it was the scholarship that I got, I had to go to school in Alabama. So it's like, okay, fine, I'll pick the closest school to Nashville. And that was North Alabama. And I hadn't visited the school at all before I went. And I had such a great time. They had a music business major that I was a part of. And the teachers there were just so supportive of me and like helping me outside of school, and are still really helpful to this day. But my favorite thing about being at that school was getting to record at Fame Studios and, do that whole thing. Like, I didn't know that there was such a rich music history. It's not just country. It's so many things. Like Aretha Franklin has recorded there, and that was really cool for me because it's very similar to the Grand Ole Opry. Like, you feel that history whenever you're in that studio. And so most of my time in Florence was getting to record at Fame, and just learn how to write with other people and learn how to create a sound for myself. But within that, on the weekends, I would take trips to Nashville with my parents. And, everybody was like, if you want to do country music, you've got to be in Nashville. And my parents kept hearing that over and over. And that convinced them to move me up to Nashville. So they all packed up and moved to Nashville for me. And I can't thank them enough. I mean, they moved to an entirely different state for me to pursue my dreams.
Wow. How lucky for you that you're loved that much. And I'm sure, do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 2 younger sisters and an older sister.
And the truth of it is they love them all that much.
Yes, exactly.
They love your sisters as much as they love you. And
yes.
See that, I've talked, like Carly Pierce's parents pretty much did the same thing. I've heard this story a lot of, Mallory Hope. Her family moved.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, and Mallory and I, it was funny. She was at a dinner with us one night and nobody knew who she was. And there were big stars out at the end of the table and everybody was talking to the big stars. And I told her, it's just you and me, and nobody at this table knows who you and I are. But we'll talk. I know who you are. And she told me a story about how her family, and I said, the beautiful thing about your family, and I'll say it to you, they were prepared for you to fail. And if you did, that would have been just fine. You know,
Yeah.
everybody, who wouldn't go place money on Taylor Swift? Who wouldn't place money on Michael Jordan? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the ones that they love you and go, I believe in you, and we're all in. And if it doesn't work out, then we're all in. God's plan, we're where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah, which is such a weight lifted off of my shoulders, honestly, because when I moved to Nashville, and honestly, even now, like there are so many disappointments and so many no's, and my family they're the first people that I go to talk about that stuff, and never once have they made me feel like I'm not doing enough when things don't go the way that I plan for them to. They're always so supportive, and really, I feel like I don't know what I would have done if I moved to Nashville and didn't have my family with me, because yes, I knew people when I moved here, but there's nothing like having your family backing you, you know, when great things happen and when they don't go the way you plan.
Well, and that's beautiful. And I'm so glad that we're bringing that out, especially for young people who are watching this and going, you know, what does it take? And I've always told people, you got to be in Nashville. You got to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where it's happening and that's where it's going to be at. And you've got to play the clubs and you've got to go to the writer's retreat. You've got to write 1,000 bad songs. You know, I was talking to Ashley Gorley a couple of weeks ago and I said, how many bad songs have you written? He goes, almost all of them.
That's not true, but
I'm just saying, that's Ashley Gorley, right? I've written all the bad songs. He goes, the majority of my songs are bad songs. You only know the hits. You haven't seen the utter failures, which are the majority of my songs. And you are talking about, there are so many no's. There are. If you're going to get into the entertainment business, I don't care what you do, you're going to get so many no's, and you're going to get so many people who try to tell you, well, if you only did it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about having your family and being able to go, you've had the training, you know what you're doing, you're paying your dues, you're learning each and every day. I loved when I saw you. We had her at a winery here, Clola Shots, and she was opening up for Tyler Braden and David Nail. And when I saw you, I always love seeing new acts. And I love seeing new acts where they almost know that nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Right? And you came out because I'd heard your song, right? So I'm like, can't wait to see how she handles this. And I could tell that you can't teach stage presence. You just can't. You can get up there. I mean, listen, I love Alan Jackson and George Strait to death. Zero stage presence. You have 50 million number one songs. You don't have to have stage presence. You just don't.
Yeah.
Right? And when you walked up, and I could tell you had put the time in, because you've been doing this since what? You were 14, 15?
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was in Birmingham, the shows that I did some festivals, but the majority of the shows that I played were at restaurants. So I used to play at our local Buffalo Wild Wings, and I did 3-hour shows, and I would sit out on the patio and just play cover songs. And sometimes I would mix in my original songs, but I was just like playing to whoever listened. Sometimes it was just my family sitting on that patio listening to me. Sometimes there were people that I didn't know. But those kinds of shows, and even more so when I moved to Nashville, I played at this restaurant called The Row, and it was really interesting because like I was like playing to people that had no idea who I was, and I had to impress them and I had to rope them in. And so I feel like doing those shows is really how I figured out how to play in front of people that don't know me and like sometimes don't care to listen. Like I had to make them listen. And so I think that's been really helpful for me, at each stage that I go to, because I feel like there's always going to be somebody in the audience that doesn't know who I am. And my job is to make them know who I am.
And you're doing a fine job. Because I've been doing this 100 years and I've talked to everybody. And when you're saying that, I remember Garth told me years ago and I was talking to him about it. And I said, can you remember the days when nobody knew who you were? And he goes, absolutely. And he goes, he made the point that playing to the room of 4 people who had no interest in him or what he was doing prepared him to play stadiums. Because if you can win over 4 people, stadiums are easy. And
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, like, I totally feel that now. Like, when I was playing those restaurant gigs, I mean, they sucked. Like, it really sucked sometimes because, sometimes I was just playing for tips, and sometimes I would go home and I made nothing. And those moments were really hard, especially when, I'm looking at these other artists that are in Nashville and are doing the same thing that I'm doing and maybe like progressing a little further than sorry, I don't know. Can you hear that car?
It's okay. Listen, I've got somebody jackhammering literally 15 feet from me. I can't hear anything.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. Those moments were really hard because, just looking at other artists that were like progressing farther than I was, and we were doing the same thing. It was really disappointing, but I think that it made me a better artist. And I feel like now when I play shows, and maybe the people in the audience do know who I am, but I'm going to put on a great show like they don't know who I am because that's where I came from. And so I definitely agree with that. Like it sucked in the moment, but I'm glad that I had to go through that.
Yeah, most learning moments do kind of suck.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. I tell my sons, they play sports, and they one of their teams was getting blown out the other day, and I was like, there's only 2. When you play a blowout, only one team is learning something, and it's not the team winning. They're not learning anything. Everything's easy. Whatever you do just works. But the team that's losing is learning a lot.
Yep.
And it's just like reverted back to football last year. Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC. Well, but who learned something? Georgia did. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it turned around. So it's never fun, but you wouldn't trade them in. You'd think you would, but you wouldn't trade them in.
Oh God, I know. Yeah. And there are so many moments in my life that in the moment I'm like, I wish that I didn't have to go through that. And, but then you understand later. And honestly, there are still some things that I'm like, I don't know why I had to go through that. I hope it comes back around later. But, the hard moments make us who we are.
The truth of it is you're still close to the event, right? You're going to have a little more space. You're going to have to get to this face, right? Before you can sit back and go, oh, I explain it to my kids when I sit back and go, we wonder why things happen. And my thing is think of the universe as a picture, and you're seeing that much, right? That's how just holding my fingers together for you listen to the audience. You're just hearing a small piece. And same thing, right now, you're still too close to that picture. And as you pull back, you go, oh, because the truth of it is, if you decide to have children, your son or daughters may face that same thing. And you're going to go, oh, I understand why I went through that now. Let me explain this to you.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It'll all come back around eventually. I can't wait for that moment.
Well, I bet you told what you did. I can't believe you didn't go to University of Alabama, Birmingham. Did you know who went to the UAB? Do you know who some of the alumni? Who else? Do you know who else?
No, I don't know
You
who
know where
else.
they all met? Let me tell you where they all met. At the University of Alabama, Birmingham, a little group called Little Big Town.
Oh my gosh. Wait, yes, I did know that. Yes. Okay. That's crazy.
Isn't that bizarre? You know?
It was, wasn't it Kimberly?
Kimberly
Kimberly,
oh gosh, Karen.
Karen. Yeah, they were, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Got some great talent in Beham.
If you get a chance to hang out with Karen Fairchild, do it. She is crazy funny. I mean, acerbic.
Is she really?
She is wicked acid funny, right? So she's not that, she's not, tells you a story and it's just zinger, zinger, zinger.
Oh my God.
And
that's so funny. I want her closet. Like, she is dressed to the nines always.
Yeah. And that's, Jimmy, her husband. And I'm like, how much closet space do you have? And he was like,
right.
Dude, he goes, I've got like 10 outfits and she's got 3 rooms.
Yeah. Yep. That's how we roll.
But you understand. Listen, I'm gonna take a quick break because I want to come back. I want to go more down this road because I'm just enjoying this. And again, when people are going, no, you didn't have Tiera Kennedy. Yeah, go back and look on this episode. At one point, she was small enough to talk to me. So we're coming back. Here's what we know with Tiera Kennedy. It's time to think differently when it comes to your parties, meetings, and groups. The catering from Havana Cuba restaurant in downtown San Jose. Instead of the same old, how about the most delicious Cuban sandwich you've ever had? You're tired of fries? Plantains, my friends, they'll change your world. And here's something you didn't know. Havana Cuba was voted one of the top 10 tamales in the entire South Bay. They have vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options, and their website is 998cuba.com. They're located at 387 South First Street in downtown San Jose. It's Havana, Cuba. So you start this and you go out and you start playing these shows. Now, you said when you decided country music, what brought you there? What acts were speaking to you? What was it that made you go, you know what? I can do this music, and why?
I feel like I say I decided to do country music, but I really didn't. I started writing songs and it just was naturally country. And I just fell in love with that whole world because obviously, like so many people, big fan of Taylor Swift. And I mean, I was in like middle school, high school at the time. So I was like in the thick of everything that she was writing about. And, when I started writing my own songs, it was naturally country because I was, telling my story, and that's what country is all about. And so it's funny you mentioned Mallory Hope because she was actually an artist that I really looked up to and really loved. And, I went and listened to like all of her music, all of Carly Pierce's music, Kelsey Ballerini. Like I was fans of them before, they had their first single. And so I would just immerse myself in their music and like follow their career, and was just trying to figure out how to do it myself because, from Birmingham, Alabama, like I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea about anything in Nashville. And so I really just like, I was like major fans of those artists. And, it's cool now getting to be friends with some of them and like get to, sit down and, like have dinner with them and like, instead of like looking at their Instagram and looking at their career to get advice, I can just sit down with them and, ask them all the questions about this crazy business.
I love that. I love the fact, and I love there's that sense of camaraderie. It's not like country music's always been competitive, but it is to a certain extent. I think that's why you see a lot of former sports people getting into it because it is competitive. Whether you look at the guys who play baseball, there's a ton of them. guys who played football. I mean, even Ingrid Andress was a Division I, volleyball player, and Grace Lear was a Division I soccer player, and they've all talked about that competitiveness, but there's still that camaraderie that we want
Yeah.
you to do good. And I could so see you and Kelsey Ballerini having dinner, because
Yeah.
she would all be in on that. And when you say Mallory Hope, have you ever heard her version of Mary Did You Know?
I don't know. I don't know that it has.
You need to hear that. The Christmas song Mary Did You Know?
Yeah.
I have always told her, I think it's we play it. It's one of our standard Christmas songs because just one of the most amazing performances. She just nails it.
Oh, I have to go listen to that. Yeah, I can't remember how I found out about her. I know that she wrote a song. She wrote Georgia Peaches for Lauren Elena, but I actually don't think that's the way I found out about her. I think I just ran up on a YouTube video that she had up. And her runs are just flawless. Her voice reminds me a lot of Lan Womack, and I just love that sound so much.
You must love Lainey Wilson a lot too.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I love Lainey. And the thing about Lainey, she is having an insane year. And I know just a little bit of her story. I know that she's been doing this for so long. And so it's so cool to see her finally, having her time to shine. But I love her so much because despite all of the success that she's having right now, she is one of the most humble people you will ever meet. And it truly is one of those artists that, says that they support the artist coming after them, and she actually does it. I love her so much. She's
living
so
in a
great.
travel trailer by a river for a couple of years will do that to you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And if you hear her, because she said, I had her on when nobody knew who she was. Literally, they had just released Things a Man Ought to Know, and nobody knew who she was. And she started telling us about living. She goes, I was the crazy trailer lady. I lived in a travel trailer, down by. And
that's crazy.
I had my friends, and they'd come over to my house, and I can't let you in. There's no room, so we'll sit out front in lounge chairs, and that's where we'll. Because there's no room in here.
Oh my God.
Other than one person. And I'm like, and she goes, it took forever. And I'm like, it took the right time. It took to the exact right time.
Yeah.
You were absolutely ready for it. And it's the same thing with you. For you, it's been a long grind. I always tell everybody, I mean, there's no overnight success stories. Even the ones who do the reality TV show, they've been at it for years and years.
Yeah.
And it's at the right time when everything's right. I want to ask you this voice. One of the things I love about your voice is your vibrato. You have a tight vibrato that you get into quick, right? And again, we're music nerding out now because I'm a music nerd, and there's some people who do the music nerd where they hit the note, they go, ah, and then at the end it goes, ah, you have to train. But yours is a tight vibrato that comes in quick. And to me, that is the hardest one to have, but it's also the coolest. It's also the coolest. You always had that. Has that been a natural thing, or was that something you developed in school? Where did that come from, as we just nerd out for a minute?
Oh man. I think it is. I think it's something that happened the more I sang and the more my voice developed, because I go back and I listen to YouTube covers that I used to do when I was just starting out. I don't know if it was there then, but that came from the artist that I was listening to, love Dolly so much. And I feel like she kind of has that thing in her voice. But it's not something that I intentionally did. I think it's just something that came naturally.
See, I think that's so cool. Because again, I notice stuff like that. And some people have a what I call a long wave vibrato. You know what I mean by that? And some people have this trill vibrato. And I love that you
Yeah.
have short trill because it's the rarest to hear to me. When it's not
Oh, thanks.
hear a lot. And so when somebody can pull it
Well,
off,
it's yeah, it's funny. I don't on a lot of my songs. I don't do the background vocals. Usually, it's like one of my friends or like a really talented artist that comes in and does the background vocals. And because I do that with my voice, the little trills when they have to mimic that on the BGVs, it's a little difficult, and they always get it because they're so talented. But it's my favorite thing to watch people do that.
yeah, here you go. Try a little bit of that. See what you guys can do with that. What was it like the first time you walked into a room with Scott Borschetta? And Scott, and many of you know American Idol. I've known Scott for a zillion years. He comes on the show and when he talks with me, and as I always say, he's the smartest man in any room he walks in. And he's just brilliant in what he sees and the observations he has. But I've never worked for him. You know what I mean? And I've always said, I'm kind of glad because I don't think you would suffer fools. And he goes, well, I just don't have time for people who don't know or want, who don't either know how to do what they're trying to do or want it enough. And both have to be part of the equation. So what was that like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I feel like I had kind of had this vision of who Scott was in my head just from other people in the industry. And when he walked in the room and he started talking, and he was like, I think he had just come from like a car show, or I don't know. He came from something pertaining to cars.
He's a complete.
I know, yeah, and he's so good at it. And so he's like nerding out about that. And literally my first thought was, oh my gosh, he is such a squish. And he was giving off like total dad vibes. And I sat down and I was playing some of my songs. I had like a couple songs prepared because in my mind, this was like our first initial meeting. I was kind of in talks with a couple labels at the time, trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And I thought that I was going to only play like a couple songs, and I played a cover. And then he kept asking for more. Like he was just sitting there smiling at me, and he kept asking me to play more songs. And I kept playing songs. I was like, at some point, I'm going to have to get my phone out and look at some lyrics because I only have so many memorized. But he offered me a deal on the spot in that meeting. And he will tell you this himself, but I did not make it easy for him. and now that we're working together, I still do not make anything easy for him. And, it is because, I was independent for so long, and I know what I want. And I know what I want my music to sound like. I know what I want to look like. I know what I want to wear. And so I'm very adamant about a lot of those things. And he jokes that I'm probably a pain in his back, but I know that he appreciates that. He appreciates people that know what they want and are confident in that. So, we go back and forth on things sometimes, but I love working with him at the end of the day. I think it's one of the few, if not the only, company that I could have been at where the head of the company, I can call up and talk about whatever I have a concern with. And he's going to listen. So yeah, I love working with him.
Well, I've known him for a long time. And when I found out you're working with Valerie Music, I'm like, that makes total sense because you're the kind of person, now that I've talked to you, that you're right in his wheelhouse. What he doesn't want is people who don't have a clue. right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just here and I'll sing a
Mm-hmm.
song. No, no, no. You need to be an active participant. You need to work as
Yep.
hard as I'm going to work because I'm going to work very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it just seems like such a good fit. And he doesn't offer people deals on the spot. I don't know if anybody told you that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was told. And not for me too. I didn't sign a deal for a long time because I'm so adamant about what I want. And signing a record deal is a big thing, and it's scary because I have friends that are artists that sign deals, and it did not go the way they planned it to. So it was something that I stayed away from for a long time. But his level of passion after that first meeting was really impressive for me because I wanted to be somewhere where they were really as excited about the music as I was. And that's exactly what I felt from that team. And I wanted it to feel like a family. And it does. And I don't know that I could have gotten that anywhere else. And so I'm really grateful for that entire team.
Hey, the truth is the majority of deals don't work out. The majority of people who
Mm-hmm.
sign don't. The majority of people, it doesn't happen. So I love the fact that, do it your way because you're only really going to get, one, maybe two shots. And you might as well do it the way you're looking at doing it. Now,
Yeah.
speaking of family, and I don't know how much time you have left, but I know you're busy, so I'm not gonna keep you too long. I know
Oh,
that,
you're good.
but I do want to, especially now that I've found you. Tell me about Kendall.
About who?
Oh, Cameron. Sorry, Cameron.
Oh, my husband.
Yes, I've got Kendall in my mind for some reason. Cameron. Tell me about Cameron. I love the wedding photos. I love the fact that he was so adamant that he wanted his pastor, and
Yes.
I love that about that young man. And I loved the picture when you guys had the picture at Valerie Music, the biggest smile was his on that whole
Yeah.
page. The biggest smile was
Mm-hmm.
right. And
Well, it's because we started working together from the very beginning. Back when I was just doing YouTube videos and I was in Birmingham and didn't really have a lot going for me. He reached out and he asked if he could help me with some content. And so, that's how our entire relationship started. And we've really built this whole thing together. Don't know that I would be where I am without him. And every accomplishment that comes my way, his way, we get to celebrate that together because we did it together. And it's really cool. I feel like there are definitely relationships where this are our whole dynamic wouldn't work out, but we're so on the same page about so many things, and we have very similar tastes, and we just love working together. And it's so fun to get to build this whole thing together. And that was something that I was really adamant about too. Whenever I signed my deal, my husband is my creative director. He does all of my content, and that's not changing. So I'm super grateful to have him by my side.
As sappy as this sounds, squishy, if you will.
Yes, squishy.
I love love. I do. I love seeing kids in love. I love seeing people in love. I love seeing people who just build each other up and hold each other up. And you guys met when you were both really young. I mean, not that you're not young now. All right. I've got on socks. I know that. But you guys met when you were so young. And the fact that you grew together And this can, there's times in this business where it's either a drought or a tsunami. It's rarely a still pond.
Yep.
You know,
right. I wish it was.
It would make everybody's life so much easier. But have that go from there, and to have somebody, I mean, you are so blessed to have so many people who believe in you. And as we were talking earlier, pass or fail. And listen, you've already passed. You've already gotten a level of notoriety that you'll find out that 80% of the people who try music would love to get where you are. It's just the truth. So there's something. 80% of people would love to get a meeting with Scott Borschetta. 80% of the people would love to be able to get into, and I use the argument, but I use the word argument, but I don't mean it in an anger part. When you say, no, this is how this is going to, I want this to go. To be able to have somebody believe in you so much to go, okay, do that. I mean, you're living a blessed life.
I really am. And I would not be able to do what I do every day without the people around me, because like you said, I mean, there are more disappointments than there are achievements in this industry. I mean, that's just the way it is. And having people around me that love me and support me, whether I'm doing great or not doing so great, means the world. I'm very thankful that I have that support system, because this would not be, it's not easy, but it would be a lot harder if I didn't have those people.
Talk about the victories real quick. What was it like the first time you heard your song on the radio?
Oh my gosh. Okay. It actually happened recently. I've heard my song on the radio, but it kind of was like I knew that it was going to play before it came on. But actually, a couple days ago, I was coming home from a show in Huntsville, and my song came on the radio, and I literally froze, and I looked at my guitar player, Brandon, and I just is this actually happening right now? It was so cool. And I'm going to be completely honest. I struggle a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people do, with comparing myself to other people and other people's journey. And I was kind of in that moment. And then my song came on the radio, and that just put things into perspective for me, and just made me feel so grateful for where I am. The fact that was happening, that is something that, me in high school, 15 years old or whatever, was dreaming of. And so for that to be able to happen, just really put into perspective. I'm so grateful. That is something that I have wanted to happen for so long, and it was really special that it happened in my home state.
Well, have you heard have you heard it on your hometown radio station yet? The one you grew up listening to?
I haven't heard it on the hometown station yet. No, not yet. But they are playing it, so I appreciate that.
That's what all changes, is when you hear it on your hometown radio station. That's when you're.
I know. I'm probably I'm one of those. I don't really cry in the moment when cool things happen. I kind of cry later. But whenever that happens, I will probably just break down in tears.
No, it is. It's just such a moment that goes up from that. And yeah, it is so easy. I've said this so many times, that comparison is the theft of joy. It is. And to find the gratefulness, and that's what I've loved about you. That's what I've loved about watching your journey. I mean, anybody who's watching the video of this, because we also do audio, but if you're watching the video of this, tell me where you'll find a better smile. Find a better smile in your entire life. And there's just so many good things. And yes, I'll let you know the secret. It's a mental struggle for all of us. And you will never stop having doubts. If you don't think,
That's what therapy's for.
yeah, Miranda Lambert doesn't have doubts, if you don't think Shania Twain didn't have doubts, how'd you like to be the biggest star in the world and have your husband leave you for your best friend?
I can't even imagine.
Right? So you're always going to have everybody. The doubts will always be there, but the good stuff is always there too. And the fact that you can,
man, I needed that. I know somebody else needed that too.
Well, it's just, I like I said, I love talking to you guys as you start your journey. It's a different story when you're talking to, pick an old grizzled veteran, but when you're talking to and you guys are just coming out, I just love to remind you that, man, this is such a fun ride, and take the time while you have it to sit back and go, oh yeah, this is a fun ride.
Yeah.
And
and that's what I feel like I have to get better at is like, I'm trying to get better at it every single day, but just sitting back and taking notice of where I am and what it got to get here, because it's so easy to just be on autopilot and on to the next thing. Because you kind of have to do that in this industry, honestly. But I am trying to take a second and appreciate those moments more often.
As well you should, because they're going to start coming at you in a million miles a second. Because you've started it off. I truly believe you have the things that's going to make it. And this song that you wrote about your husband.
Yes.
Again, I love. I do. And you guys need to go look up that song. The internet's weird, so I'm not playing it. Okay. So we haven't figured out the internet, hide the pay, and I don't want you to get cheated out of any money. So I'm just, but I'm encouraging everybody to go to Tiera's website, go look it up, call your local radio stations, and listen to it. You can find it on my radio station, KRTY.com. We're playing it.
Yes.
Send me a note. I'll hear it and I'll play it for you the moment you send it to me. But I love that. And I can only imagine what it was like writing that song.
Oh man, that was that song in general is a really special song for my journey because it was the beginning of my journey. I wrote it with my producer, who's also named Cameron. But that was our first time writing together. And he had actually reached out to me over Instagram and asked if I wanted to write. And, it was just a two-way, which is like, sometimes those are kind of scary, especially when you've never written with a person before, because it's like, there's no escaping if the write does not go great. But it was amazing. I just sat down and he asked me what I wanted to write about and what I was going through. And I started talking about my husband, and this song just kind of fell out. And I remember leaving that write, and after he sent me the demo, I was like, first off, I love this song. Second off, this is the exact sound that I have been trying to find for myself, because I didn't have a producer at that time. I didn't have anybody that I was working with consistently. And my producer, Cameron Bedell, he had grown up listening to R&B and country, and I did too. And that song is a blend of both of those. And it was different. It's different than what any other artist is doing. And that's my lane. Like, I don't want to do what anybody else is doing. I want to create something for myself. And, so Cameron he had never produced an artist before. And I asked him if he would be my producer. And he was a little reluctant to it at first because he had never done it before. But I was like, come on, like, this makes so much sense. Like, we love working together. And, I finally convinced him to work with me. And so Founded in You was the beginning of that relationship. And we've made so many great songs since then and are still making really cool stuff together. And then the fact that it's about my husband. He loves to say that that's his song. um, and, it landed me a record deal too. I released it independently and just really was just wanting to put music out. I did not think that it would gain millions of streams and that labels would take notice to it and that I would end up signing a record deal. And the fact that it's my first country radio single just means the world. I'm really excited and grateful for all of the things that song has given me.
Tell me about when he first heard it. Come on. What did
when Cameron first heard it? Oh my gosh, I don't even remember.
Come on, he had to cry like,
honestly. Oh no,
at a 10-year-old at a PTA concert. Come on.
No. You know the funny thing, like I write so many songs about him. Like he's not immune to it, but like I mean, all of my love songs are about him. You know, so I know. I really, truly don't remember what his reaction was to that song, but I do know that he loves it, and it's like the only song of mine that he knows all of the words to. So,
I bet he remembers. I bet he remembers getting smacked in the face because it's just such a beautiful song, and it'll be the wedding song of 2023.
I sure hope so.
It will be. It'll be the wedding song of 2023. Name me a better song for a wedding. All right, I'll wait. I'll wait right here.
There isn't one. Found it in you. Use it, guys.
This has been so enjoyable, and I have looked forward to it for the longest time. And so I just can't wait for this journey again. I hope we can do this again soon. Again, I know I have to pick and choose because you're only going to get busier. And 2023 is going to be a very busy year. But I would love to stay up with you because still I have all kinds of questions. I got to find out where the name Tiera came from. And we'll get that in the next episode. Right?
Yeah, well, let's for sure do it again. I appreciate you having me on. It was such a joy getting to hang with you, and you are just amazing to be around. You give off such a great light. So thank you for having me on.
Bless your heart and roll tide.
Roll Tide.